Everyone remembers the music stopping. What almost nobody remembers is that Robb Stark's direwolf tried to warn him at the gates. Grey Wind snarled at the Frey escort. Robb pulled the wolf back. The Freys demanded it be kennelled. Robb agreed. The animal that found the secret path at Oxcross, that could smell an ambush in pitch darkness, told Robb something was wrong. He locked it behind bars and walked into the feast hall without it. But the war was already over before the doors closed. It died in 3 places: a burning castle, a bay lit green by wildfire, and a betrayal inside Robb's own army that the show never fully explains. One fact separates Robb Stark's war from every other failed rebellion in the history of Westeros. He never loses a battle, not one. At the dawn of his military campaign, he splits his army at the Twins, sends Roose Bolton south with the infantry as a feint, and rides west with the cavalry. Tywin takes the bait. At the Whispering Wood, Robb ambushes Jaime Lannister's force. The rout is total. Jaime himself is dragged from his horse and taken in chains. That same night, Robb sweeps through the Lannister siege camps at Riverrun. The siege breaks. Edmure Tully walks free. The Riverlands rally behind a 15-year-old boy. And as his Lord Father is executed in King's Landing, the Lords of the North and the Riverlands choose him to break away from the kingdoms and lead them as King in the North and King of the Trident, believing neither in Stannis nor in Renly. Mere weeks later, Robb invades the Westerlands, Tywin's home territory. At Oxcross, Grey Wind discovers a goat path through the western hills that sentries don't know exists. Robb uses it to launch a night raid that wipes out Stafford Lannister's entire reinforcement army, taking his life along the way, Lord Tywin's cousin and brother to his late wife, Joanna. At this point in time, Robb is declared king in the north. He holds Riverrun. Jaime Lannister sits in his chains. The Westerlands are on fire. On paper, he is winning everything. But winning every battle is sometimes not enough when the entire realm is on fire, with countless factions seeking to destroy it. Robb has no allies outside his existing coalition, no fleet, no way to force a surrender, and the throne he is fighting is about to double in strength. The first fracture has nothing to do with Robb's skill in the field. It follows from a single decision he makes before the war really even begins. He sends Theon Greyjoy to Pike. The reasoning? Convince Balon Greyjoy to join the Northern cause. Add the Iron Fleet to the war. Theon is Balon's only surviving son. Robb thinks of him as a brother, but also believes that is leverage. It is the opposite. Balon looks at his son wearing northern furs and sees a boy who forgot the drowned god. He rejects the alliance. Then he does something Robb has not imagined. He invades the North itself, rising in rebellion once more, and titling himself Balon Greyjoy, the 9th of his name since the Grey King, King of the Isles and the North. The Ironborn seize Moat Cailin, severing Robb's only land route home. Theon takes Winterfell with 20 men and a ladder. Bran and Rickon are dead. That is what the world believes. Theon displays 2 tarred bodies. They are not the Stark boys. They are Miller's sons. But Robb does not know that. He receives the news hundreds of miles south, wounded at the Crag, House Westerling's castle in the Westerlands, which they had stormed earlier. Yet another western castle taken by the northern armies. His home is in ruins. His brothers are dead. In the depth of that grief, the castle's young lady, Jeyne Westerling, comforts him. He sleeps with her. Because he is Ned Stark's son, because he will not leave a high-born girl dishonored, he weds her the next day. But there is something Robb never learns, something the books reveal 2 volumes later. Jeyne's mother, Lady Sybell Spicer, stays loyal to Tywin Lannister, even though the Crags surrendered to King Robb and married their daughter to him. Every day she gives Jeyne a potion she calls a fertility aid. It is moon tea, a contraceptive. Even if Robb survives, House Lannister makes sure from afar that there will be no heir from this marriage. When Jaime Lannister later meets Sybell, months after the Red Wedding, she admits it plainly. She made certain there would be no child, as your Lord Father bid me, she said. That single marriage costs Robb everything he bought at the Twins. His entire passage south rested on a promise to marry one of Walder Frey's daughters. The promise is now broken. And the marriage that broke it was poisoned from the inside before it began. Follow the chain. Theon's betrayal leads to Winterfell. Winterfell leads to grief. Grief leads to Jeyne. Jeyne leads to the shattered Frey pact. 4 links, every one forged by the last. The second fracture is strategic. While Robb campaigns in the Westerlands, Edmure Tully defends the Riverlands. And here begins one of the longest-running arguments in the Song of Ice and Fire fandom. Robb claims he had a plan, not merely to raid the Westerlands, but to destroy Tywin Lannister's army entirely. The architecture was this: invade Casterly Rock's heartland, force Tywin to abandon his seat at Harrenhal and let King's Landing fall to Stannis, and march home. Let him cross the Red Fork. Let him go deep into the west, away from King's Landing, away from everything. Meanwhile, Roose Bolton moves south and seizes Harrenhal behind him, cutting off the retreat east. Robb's cavalry, waiting somewhere along the Gold Road, closes from the front. Edmure sallies from River Run and cuts off the rear. Tywin walks into a 3-pronged trap with no bolt hole. Edmure does not know this plan. He is not told. What he knows is that Tywin Lannister, with nearly 20,000 men, is probing the Red Fork Forbs. What he knows is that he was beaten and captured by Jaime Lannister earlier in this same war, and that his nephew has won every battle since, and that he has won none. What he knows is that his dying father is watching from a sickbed, and that Bracken and Blackwood, who agree on nothing, both support his decision to fight. He calls his banners. 8,000 foot, 3,000 horse. He stations them across every ford north and south of River Run, holding the high ground on each crossing. Lord Jason Mallister commands the southern fords. Lord Carol Vance holds those upstream. Edmure himself commands the stone mill. Tywin probes, then he commits. Over several days, he throws his army at a dozen river crossings simultaneously. Lord Leo Lefford drowns. Sir Robert Brax is killed. Sir Lyle Crakehall is taken prisoner. Sir Adam Marbrand is beaten back 3 times. At Stone Mill, Gregor Clegane's men briefly gain the west bank before Edmure drives them off with his reserve. The mountain takes a dozen arrows and retreats. Tywin, unable to cross, turns his army southeast. From River Run, this is an unambiguous victory. Outnumbered nearly 2-1, Edmure Tully has beaten the most feared commander in Westeros in open battle. He is the only lord in the realm who can say that. Whether Robb's trap was real or a retroactive excuse remains contested. Edmure would later point out, with justification, that a commander who withholds his plan from his subordinate cannot then blame the subordinate for not following it. What is not debatable is the consequence. Tywin stays in place long enough for riders out of Bitterbridge to find him. The message they carry? Peter Baelish has brokered an alliance between House Tyrell and the Iron Throne. Renly's former bannermen are available. King's Landing is not yet lost. Tywin turns his army east. He rendezvoused with Mace Tyrell, Randil Tarly, and Mathis Rowan on the road south. When Stannis Baratheon launches his assault on King's Landing, the last viable chance to break Lannister power in a single blow, Tywin arrives by the Mudgate at the moment of maximum crisis, with the Tyrells behind him. The crossing Edmure prevented bought Tywin exactly the time he needed. The Blackwater changes the war in one night. Stannis is crushed. The only other king fighting the Lannisters is finished. And the Tyrell alliance, brokered by Littlefinger, hands the Iron Throne the manpower, the granaries, and the gold of the Reach. Before Blackwater, Robb against a divided South. After the Blackwater, Robb against a unified South with double the soldiers, double the treasury, and the largest fleet in Westeros. After the Blackwater, the war becomes unwinnable. Everything that follows is a damaged king trying to fight a war the board will no longer let him win. Robb's position after Blackwater is desperate, but not automatically fatal. Coalitions have reformed from worse. Truces have been bought with less. What turns desperate into dead is something happening inside Robb's own army. Walder Frey nurses a grudge, but Roose Bolton is just as cold a lord as they come. They are not the same kind of danger. Bolton has commanded Robb's infantry since the Green Fork, the very first battle of the war. He has held Harrenhal for months. He has operated hundreds of miles from Robb with near total autonomy. And after the Blackwater, his behavior changes. Look at his record and you can map the betrayal in stages. Early in the war, Bolton places other houses' men in the most exposed positions at the Green Fork. His own Dreadfort forces stay in reserve. That could be caution. It is not yet treason. But after Blackwater, after the Lannister-Tyrell alliance seals the South, his actions cross a line. He orders Sir Helman Tallheart and Robert Glover to march on Duskendale. He tells them the command comes from Robb. It does not. Duskendale has no strategic value for the northern cause, none. Randall Tarly and Gregor Clegane are waiting. The northern force is destroyed. Tallheart dies. Glover is captured. Over 1,000 men gone. And the forces sent to die are Serwyn men, Glover men, Hornwood men, Karstark men, Tallheart men, every one of them loyal to Stark, not a single Dreadfort soldier among them. When King Robb hears of this, his own words are words of disbelief. Duskendale, on the narrow sea! Why would they go to Duskendale? A third of my foot lost for Duskendale? Robb does not understand why his own commander sent those men there, because Roose Bolton is no longer his commander. Roose has read the outcome. The war is finished. Now he is eliminating every house that might resist him in the north that comes after. The pattern repeats on the march to the Twins. Gregor Clegane falls on Roose's rearguard at the Ruby Ford. 2,000 northern soldiers are cut down in the water, non-Bolton houses. Roose does not turn around. He does not engage Clegane. He keeps marching. By the time the Red Wedding begins, the Northern Army has bled out from within, not from the enemy, from its own second-in-command. Every lord who might challenge a Bolton takeover of the North is already dead or in chains. And Roose's bastard has already paved the way for him by taking Winterfell from the Ironborn. But that is a story for another day. What follows does not cause the collapse, it completes it. Catelyn frees Jaime Lannister, sends himself with Brienne, hoping for her daughters in return. Lord Rickard Karstark, who has lost 2 sons to Jaime, murders 2 Lannister captive boys. Robb executes Karstark, who declares him a kinslayer with his last breath. The Karstark forces walk out of camp. A third of his infantry gone at Duskendale. Karstark's gone, the Frey pact shattered, the Lannister-Tyrell alliance unbreakable, Roose Bolton maneuvering for the aftermath. None of these alone kills the war. Together, they make it a corpse. And at Oldstones, a few weeks before the Red Wedding, Robb does something that reveals he knows his end might come. He gathers his closest bannermen and writes a will. He names Jon Snow, his bastard half-brother, a sworn man of the Night's Watch, as his heir to Winterfell and the North. Catelyn objects. Robb overrules her. Amongst the witness, Edmure Tully, Maege Mormont, Galbart Glover. He has no good options left. He has a will and a wolf. His last move, return to the Twins. Offer Edmure as a replacement groom to appease Walder Frey, and then return to the north, reclaim his territory from the Ironborn, and avenge Bran and Rickon. That implies walking into the castle of the man he betrayed with a hollowed-out army, trusting that guest right will hold. At the gates, Grey Wind snarls at the Frey escort. The Freys insist the direwolf be kennelled. Robb agrees. The animal that found the goat path at Oxcross, that could smell a trap in total darkness, is locked behind a gate. Robb walks into the feast hall without it, and you already know what happens next. So when does Robb Stark lose his war? There is no single answer, but there is a layered one, and it is more honest than any version that blames one mistake. Winterfell is the first fracture. It destroys the North as a secure base, takes the boys who represent Stark continuity, and ignites the chain of grief that runs through Jeyne Westerling to the shattered Frey pact. Without Winterfell, the marriage never happens. Without the marriage, the Red Wedding has no political trigger. The Blackwater is the strategic death. After it, the arithmetic of the war no longer works. The Lannister-Tyrell alliance gives the throne twice the men, twice the gold, and the food supply of the Reach. Robb can still hold ground. He can still fight. He cannot win. Roose Bolton is the hidden accelerant, not the cause of the defeat, the reason it never heals. Bolton bleeds the army of its stark, loyal strength, positions the Dreadfort to survive, converts a losing war into a kill zone. All of it so quiet that Robb never comprehends what is happening to him. Tywin Lannister, when his own son asks him about the morality of the Red Wedding, gives the coldest answer in the novels. "Explain to me why it is more noble to kill 10,000 men in battle than a dozen at dinner." It is monstrous, it is logical, and it only works because the war was already decided before the wine was poured. The Red Wedding is where the story ends. Roose Bolton pushes a blade through Robb's heart and speaks the last words the King in the North will ever hear. Jaime Lannister sends his regards. Not the Lannisters. In the books, Roose names Jaime specifically, a man who had no part in the conspiracy. The line is a private cruelty aimed at a dying king who will never know the full shape of what destroyed him. But if you came here to learn when the war was lost, the answer stands before the music started. 3 places: a burning castle that shattered the foundations, a bay lit green by wildfire that killed the path to victory, and a letter Roose Bolton wrote that nobody else was allowed to read. Winterfell breaks the North. The Blackwater flips the board. Roose makes the damage permanent. And the Red Wedding? That is the receipt.